You ever seen a ghost walk past someone who used to love it? That chill in the air, that silence after the storm, that's you now. That's what they feel when your name slips out in a room they never meant to mention it in. See, people don't notice gold when they're busy choking on glitter. They don't recognize peace until the chaos they entertained starts tearing them up from the inside. And you were peace. You were gold. And they were blind, dumb, and stupidly loud about it. You gave what no one else dared. You showed up when it was inconvenient. You stood tall when it would have been easier to disappear. And they thought you'd never leave. That's the sickest part. They thought they had you on a leash, tied to a kindness they mistook for weakness. They played with your loyalty like it was a game, pressed all the buttons just to see what you'd do, took your silence as submission, your forgiveness as foolishness. They thought wrong. Because the moment you walked out, everything changed. Not just for you, but for them. And that's what this is about. 10 lessons, 10 realities, 10 little fires you left behind when you stopped pouring water over their mess. They learned. Oh, they learned. But too late. That's the punchline, isn't it? They finally get it. After you're gone. After the calls stop. After the texts fade. After the apologies bounce off a wall of silence. After the silence becomes louder than anything they ever said. And it hurts. Not because they lost you. No. It hurts because they never thought you could leave. It never crossed their mind that the one who forgave too much, gave too much, stayed too long, would ever disappear. They believed you were predictable, that no matter what they did, you'd crawl back, that you'd explain, justify, beg, break, but not this time. This time, you vanished, quiet, cold, calculated. You see, the problem with people, they think you're replaceable. Until they try. They swipe left, swipe right, dig through bodies, conversations, fake laughs, dead stares, searching for what you gave naturally. But it doesn't hit the same. It doesn't heal, it doesn't hold them together when they're falling apart. Because what you offered came from a place that wasn't transactional. It was real. And real is rare. Real is heavy. Real walks away when it's had enough. You were the storm they thought was a drizzle. The fire they thought they could play with. The diamond they buried in dirt. And now they see. Now they feel. Now they sit in rooms full of noise and still feel alone. They scroll through your old messages like crime scenes, reading the words they once ignored. The take care hits different. The I'm here feels like a slap. And every I love you they once shrugged off, it's a ghost now. One that haunts every new face they meet, every cold shoulder they get, every failed connection that doesn't come close to the bond you gave for free. So let's talk about it. The 10 lessons they learned too late. Lessons carved into their pride, etched into their ego, screamed into their silence. And it's not for them, it's for you, to remind you what they lost, to remind you why you left, to remind you that you were never the weak one. They were just too blind to see what real strength looked like. Now sit back, listen. Let me show you the scars they hide when your name comes up. Let me drag their regret into the light, one lesson at a time. Let's begin. First lesson, they learned that loyalty is not eternal. It has a breaking point. They thought loyalty meant slavery. They thought because you stayed through the storms they caused, you'd never walk away. That no matter how many times they tested your limits, you'd bend, not break. They took your silence after their disrespect as approval. They took your kindness after their betrayal as weakness. They believed loyalty was a leash, that you'd never dare to unclip it and walk away for good. But what they never understood is that loyalty isn't built on how much pain you can take. It's built on respect. And once that respect is gone, loyalty becomes a slow death. They didn't see it, but every time they lied, every time they disappeared when you needed them, every time they made you feel like you weren't enough, something inside you snapped, quietly, without noise, without drama. You started dying in pieces. You gave them warning signs, a change in tone, a shorter reply, a late response, a missing good morning. But they ignored it because they were too used to you being there. They thought loyalty was eternal. But here's the truth. It has a breaking point. And once it's crossed, there's no coming back. Once a loyal heart turns cold, it never beats the same. And they learned that the hard way when your always became silence, when your patience turned to indifference, when your love stopped checking in. They looked around expecting to find you like they always did. And they saw nothing but absence. Not because you stopped loving. No, you just finally started loving yourself more. They never believed you'd stop trying. But you did. You stopped fighting for someone who wouldn't even hold the rope. You stopped waiting on someone who never showed up. And when they finally looked back to say, "I miss you," they realized they were talking to a ghost. And ghosts don't come back. They walked around like they had time. That's what fools do. They take your devotion and mark it forever while treating you like an option. They believed you'd always be a message away, that no matter how deep they cut, your arms would stay open. They confused the healing you gave with the chaos they caused, and they danced around your loyalty like it was a toy, until the day you let it go. And now, they sit with that silence, that heavy, suffocating silence that follows the departure of someone who meant everything, but got treated like nothing. They scroll through the past like archaeologists digging up pieces of a civilization they destroyed. She was loyal, they whisper to themselves. He was real, and it burns. Because now they realize what they lost wasn't someone who needed them, but someone who chose them. And that choice, it's gone. You gave your best, they gambled it. You stayed when everyone else left. They mocked it. You made excuses for them, covered for them, defended them against people who saw the truth before you did. And they took advantage of every damn moment because they thought your loyalty was permanent. But now they know it had a breaking point, and they broke it with games, with pride, with silence, with neglect. And now, no matter how loud they scream, no matter how many doors they knock on, no matter how many people they chase, they'll never find that kind of loyalty again. Because real ones don't beg to be seen. They leave when they're blinded too long. And when they leave, they don't look back. Second lesson, they learned that silence is a response. And it's the loudest one you ever gave. See, they thought silence meant you were still processing, still hoping, still holding on. They thought you were the same as before, just quiet for a bit. They expected that, like always, you'd break the silence first, that you'd fold, that your need to keep the peace would outweigh the damage they caused. But they didn't realize something shifted. Your silence wasn't the pause before forgiveness this time. It was the funeral, the end, the cold, calculated signal that you were done explaining yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you, done arguing with someone who only listened to react, not to understand, done giving chapters of your soul to people who barely read the title. They didn't get it at first, thought it was temporary, a phase. You know, that childish arrogance people carry when they believe you're addicted to their presence. But when the hours turned to days and days to weeks, and you still said nothing, that's when it started to creep in. The fear, the regret, the slow realization that your silence wasn't passive. It was a choice, a weapon, and it was hitting harder than any words ever could. You used to fight to keep them, used to break yourself into pieces just to fix what they shattered. You used to overthink every text, every word, every breath, just to avoid hurting them, just to keep the connection alive. But not anymore. That version of you died the day you realized talking doesn't matter if someone's ears are closed, if someone's heart is selfish. So now they live with silence. That hollow, ghostly, skin-crawling silence. And it echoes in the same halls they used to ignore your voice in. It screams in the same moments they once brushed you off like you didn't matter. You see, silence has a way of dragging guilt out of the shadows. It doesn't just sit quietly. It sits heavy. It forces them to listen to every cruel thing they said, every time they rolled their eyes at your pain, every time they left you unread, knowing you needed them. Now they reread every message they left unseen. Now they check your status, hoping for a sign. Now they stare at a phone that won't ring. Because silence is a mirror, and it shows them who they really are when no one's there to absorb their chaos. It makes them sit with themselves. No distractions, no validation, no you. And trust me, You were the distraction. You were the cushion that made them feel like they weren't as selfish, as broken, as careless as they really were. But without you, it's raw. It's real. It's just them, their pride, and the wreckage they caused. And no matter how many people they surround themselves with, it won't drown out what silence screams. Because your silence, it says everything. It says, I'm done. It says, I gave too much. It says, you lost me. And nothing is louder than the absence of a soul that once screamed love into someone who never deserved it. They thought words were power, but you showed them silence is lethal. They wanted a reaction. You gave them a void. And now they talk to themselves, argue with themselves, cry to themselves, because the one person they could unload their mess onto is gone. You, the one who stayed through storms, the one who held their world while yours was falling apart, the one who never stopped listening until now. Now they listen to silence, and it's breaking them in places your words never could. Third lesson, they learned that attention isn't affection, and not everyone will love them like you did. They were addicted to the spotlight, obsessed with the chase, infatuated with the applause, the comments, the flattery from strangers who didn't even know them. You gave them depth, but they craved distraction. You gave them truth, but they wanted noise. You gave them the kind of love that builds, heals, forgives, and grows. But they chose temporary highs, surface-level praise, and fake admiration. They mistook attention for affection. They thought as long as someone was watching, it meant they mattered. That as long as someone was texting, it meant they were loved. They didn't understand that not all eyes see your soul, and not all hearts know how to hold you when you're bleeding inside. They were spoiled by the way you loved them, consistently, quietly, without conditions. And they thought that kind of love was common. They believed they could lose you and find better. That someone else would love them the way you did, maybe even more. But life doesn't hand out replacements for what's irreplaceable. And now they know. They wandered into the world thinking they'd upgrade, thinking they'd leave you, and find someone who'd love them without questioning, without boundaries, without accountability. They thought love meant being tolerated while acting toxic. They thought affection was a given, even when they gave nothing in return. But what they found? It was hollow. What they got were compliments without substance, texts without meaning, bodies without soul, conversations that didn't dig, didn't hold, didn't care. They laughed at your sensitivity. Now they crave it. They mocked your vulnerability. Now they miss it. Because the world doesn't give love like yours freely. It gives attention, lust, validation. But the kind of love you gave, that kind of love sits with someone in silence when the whole world turns its back. That kind of love remembers the little things. It sees through lies. It forgives flaws. It doesn't flirt with others while claiming loyalty. It's rare. And now that it's gone, they know. They learned that the attention they chased is a poor substitute for the affection they threw away. Now, they search for pieces of you in every new connection. They listen for your voice in other people's laughter. They watch someone else's eyes, hoping for your fire. But it's not there, because no one loves like you did. No one stuck around when it got heavy. No one held them through the silence. No one called just to say, "I believe in you." No one saw through their anger and said, "I know you're hurting, and I'm still here." You did. You saw the mess and loved them anyway. You saw the brokenness and tried to heal it. But they were too drunk on ego to see it for what it was. They thought your love would always be there, until it wasn't. Now they wake up in beds that feel colder, surrounded by people who only care when the mask is on. They laugh in public and cry in private. They post smiles and scroll through emptiness, because attention fades, but the absence of real love, that lingers. And now they ache quietly, constantly, not for you, but for the way you made them feel safe, seen, chosen. They miss the way your eyes didn't just look at them, they understood them. The way your touch didn't just comfort them, it anchored them. The way your words didn't just speak, they healed. And no matter how many likes they get, how many new names pop up in their inbox, it doesn't hit the same, because love like yours doesn't knock twice. And they slam the door in its face the first time. Now all they're left with are echoes of what if and what the hell did I do? That's what they get for chasing attention and losing affection, for trading real for right now, for thinking love like yours was easy to find. Let them learn, let them suffer, because not everyone will love them like you did. Hell, no one will. Fourth lesson, they learned that replacements can't replicate what was real. The funniest tragedy, thinking someone else could do what you did, be who you were, love like you loved. They tried it though. Oh, they tried. Swapped you out like you were just another chapter, just another name in their little black book of emotional experiments. Thought they could plug someone else into your spot and get the same result. Like your love was some basic formula. Give affection, get validation. But what they forgot is real love ain't a copy-paste job. It's handwritten. And your handwriting, they'll never decode that again, because what you gave came from soul, not strategy, from loyalty, not lust. And now they know, the hard way, that a replacement ain't a resurrection. You don't just lose someone like you and recover. Nah, you bleed in silence. You suffocate in crowds. You learn, too damn late, that you don't replace the rare. You grieve it. They thought if they moved on fast, they'd move on for real. That if they smiled hard enough in new arms, their heart wouldn't ache. That if they posted enough pictures, people would believe they were over you. But smiles lie. Pictures lie. Bodies lie. Hearts don't. And their heart, it's been choking ever since you went quiet. Because they tried to rebuild what they destroyed using people who never held a blueprint of your soul. These new faces don't get them. They don't understand the weight behind their silence. They don't stay during the storm. They don't remember the small things. They don't check in after the crowd disappears. They're not you. And that's the wound they can't bandage. You see, you weren't just love. You were safety. You were understanding without explanation. You were their peace in a world full of noise. And now, they've got noise, but no peace. People around them, but no connection. Conversations, but no meaning. And every time they laugh, there's a shadow behind it, a whisper that says, this isn't it, because it isn't. It never will be. You set the standard. You defined what real felt like. And no matter how many arms they run to, they keep running into the same wall. You're gone. And the replacements? They're placeholders, cheap copies, shallow waters where they once swam in depth. They thought they could just erase you and redraw the story. But love like yours burns through pages. It stains. It lingers. It haunts. And now they're haunted by your silence, by your absence, by the memory of what it felt like to be loved with truth. They scroll through your old photos, zooming in on the eyes they used to look into without blinking. They hear your laugh in dreams. They type your name and erase it, because reaching out would mean admitting they lost the best thing they ever had. And pride won't let them say it. But their soul screams it every night, screams it when they see the people they chose instead of you, screams it when they realize those people want them, but don't love them. And love, that's what you gave, without keeping score, without conditions, without games. But now it's gone. And replacements? They don't touch the same wounds. They don't know the code. They don't heal, just distract. And distraction wears off. That's the fourth lesson they learned the hard way. You don't replace real. You just live with the ache of what you lost and try to survive the silence it left behind. Fifth lesson. They learned that the one who cared the most is always the hardest to forget. They used to roll their eyes at your concern, didn't they? Acted like your care was too much, too intense, too clingy. Like love came with a pause button they could press whenever they needed space. You'd check in, and they'd get annoyed. You'd ask if they were okay, and they'd shrug it off like it didn't matter. You stayed up late for them, missed sleep for them, put off your own needs just to make sure they were all right. And they treated it like background noise because they were used to it, used to you. Used to being held when the world collapsed, used to your words wrapping around their wounds when no one else even noticed they were bleeding. And now They sit in the same silence they once wished for. Now, they reach for phones that don't light up. Now they open messages that don't exist. Because the one who cared the most walked quietly, finally. See, it's easy to forget the loud ones. The ones who came for attention, for fun, for distraction. But the one who cared, who really, deeply, fully cared, that one sticks, that one burns. You were the safe place they never realized they needed until they were cold everywhere else. They didn't get it while you were there. But now every little thing reminds them of you. Not just the big moments. No, the small ones. The way you said their name. The way you noticed their mood without them saying a word. The way you remembered their favorite things, even when they forgot yours. That type of care, that doesn't fade. That type of soul presence doesn't just vanish when you stop talking. It embeds itself in the walls of their mind, in the cracks of their memory. And now, they're haunted by it. You were the one who called just to hear their voice, who noticed the shift in their tone and asked twice when they said, "I'm fine," who didn't just love them when they were lovable, but even when they were bitter, distant, broken. You were the one who stood in the fire, even when it burned you, just to protect them from the heat. And they treated it like a given, like love like that grows on every corner. But now, they're searching through people who don't remember their stories, through hugs that feel like handshakes, through texts that are dry, forced, empty. And the whole time, one thought crawls through their head like a knife. No one cared, like they did. And the irony, the things they once mocked are the very things they crave now. They miss the random check-ins, the soft, "be careful," before they left, the long paragraphs you wrote just to make them feel seen. They miss being known, not just loved, but known, deeply, the way you knew their fears, their patterns, their triggers, and you never weaponized them, the way you made them feel like even their flaws were safe with you. And now, they don't feel safe anywhere. They feel replaceable, empty. And that void, it has your shape. So now they pretend they're over it, pretend they're better off. But every fake laugh, every forced smile, every night they scroll through old memories while the world sleeps. That's where the truth lives. That's where it hurts. Because the one who cared the most is the one they'll never forget. And they'll carry your absence like a scar stitched into every new connection. Not because you left, but because they made you leave. Because they had everything and they let it rot in their hands. Sixth lesson. They learned that losing a genuine soul leaves a lifetime void. They didn't lose a person. They lost a force, a presence, a heartbeat that beat in rhythm with theirs, even when they didn't deserve it. You weren't just someone. They'll meet thousands of someones. You were that rare soul that shows up once in a lifetime, maybe twice if God is feeling generous. You didn't walk into their life asking for much. All you wanted was honesty, effort, something real. But they couldn't handle that. They couldn't handle someone who looked past their masks, someone who made them feel seen without even trying. You brought warmth to their coldest days, and they brought storms to your sunshine. And still, you stayed, until one day, you didn't. And they didn't realize it in the moment. But the day you left, their soul got quieter. Their life got colder. Their heart lost the only rhythm that ever made sense. Now every room feels a little too empty. Every laugh a little too forced. The things that used to feel full, they echo now. They didn't know how much space you took up until your absence started swallowing them whole. You weren't loud, you weren't dramatic, but your love filled corners of their world that nothing else ever could. You were the stability in their chaos, the calm in their storms, the one who brought peace without asking for attention in return. And now that peace is gone, replaced by confusion, regret, static, because the world doesn't teach people how to live without someone like you. It just watches them slowly fall apart, pretending they're fine. You see, they had someone who saw through them and stayed anyway. Someone who didn't run when they were messy, inconsistent, broken. You were the one who looked at their worst and still chose to be near. That kind of presence doesn't leave quietly. It leaves holes. Holes in the way they process things. Holes in the way they connect. Holes in the way they trust. Because now every time they try to open up to someone new, your ghost shows up first. Your voice whispering, "This isn't love." Your eyes staring back through unfamiliar faces. Your care setting a standard no one else can touch. And they'll never admit it, but they feel it every damn day. They thought they could replace a soul with a body. That if they laughed enough, drank enough, distracted themselves enough, they could forget you. But it doesn't work like that. Genuine people leave fingerprints on your soul. Permanent ones. And you didn't just love, they felt you deeply, fully, silently. You gave without shouting, supported without conditions, and now they trade every fake moment they've chased just to feel that again. Just to hear you say, "I'm proud of you," one more time. Just to fall asleep, knowing someone cared, not for their image, but for their insides. But now, the line's cut. You're not there to remind them who they are when they get lost. You're not there to check on them when they're too proud to ask for help. You're not there to hold the pieces when they inevitably fall apart. And this is the price. This is what happens when you lose someone real and try to replace them with anything less. The soul doesn't lie, and now theirs knows the truth. That what they lost wasn't just love, It was a once-in-a-lifetime soul that won't return. That silence they sit with every night, that's not just guilt. That's the sound of a lifetime void they can't fill, because they let go of the one who was never meant to leave. Seventh lesson. They learned that you were their peace, not their prison. They used to act like being loved by you was a burden, like your presence was too much to handle, too intense, too soft, too real. They made it seem like being cared for was a problem, like consistency was something they had to escape, like the way you checked in, stayed close, gave your all, was somehow suffocating. But now they get it. Now they understand that you weren't the chain. You were the anchor. You didn't trap them. You kept them from drifting into their own destruction. You weren't their prison. You were their peace. And now that you're gone, now that the door they kept pushing against finally swung open, and you walked out without looking back, they're out there free and falling apart. They didn't see it back then, but chaos was their comfort zone. And you, being stable, being whole, being committed, it scared them. You showed them something too real, too confronting. You mirrored their flaws, not by judging them, but by loving them through it. And that's what messed them up. Because people like that, they run from what they don't understand. They run from what makes them grow. And you were growth. You were healing. You were calm in human form. And now that they've run, they're surrounded by noise, surrounded by people who cheer for their ego but ignore their soul, people who applaud their recklessness but don't know how to handle their wounds, people who clap when they perform but vanish when they cry. That's the crowd they chose over you. You never asked them to be perfect. You just asked them to be present, to stop running, to stop acting like love was a game with rules that changed every time they felt scared. But they couldn't give that. They wanted the rush, the drama, the chase. They confused peace with boredom. And now that they've had a taste of what life feels like without you, it's loud, it's cold, it's fake. They sit in rooms full of people and feel completely alone. Because no one gets them like you did. No one calms their storm the way your voice did. No one looks at them and sees the real, only the version they pretend to be. You were peace in a world that fed their anxiety. You were soft in a reality that demanded hardness, and they mistook that for weakness. They tried to break you down so they didn't have to rise up. They wanted to control what they couldn't understand. And now they miss you. Not just your words or your presence, but the calm you brought. The way your energy made even their worst days feel survivable. The way your love didn't just hug them, it healed them. And they'll keep chasing distractions, keep flirting with emptiness. Keep scrolling through strangers, hoping to find your calm in someone else's chaos. But they won't, because peace like yours doesn't come in abundance. It's rare, it's divine, and once it's gone, life hits different. Sleep doesn't feel as safe, success doesn't feel as fulfilling, and fun feels hollow. That's the lesson. That's what they had to learn the hard way, that what they once called a prison was actually the only place they were ever free. And now they roam free and completely lost. Eighth lesson. They learned that the quiet ones always leave the deepest scars. You didn't slam the door. You didn't scream. You didn't break things, burn bridges, or beg to be understood. No, you just went silent. You disappeared the same way you arrived, softly, without a storm, but with the kind of finality that shakes a soul to its knees. That's the thing about people like you. You absorb everything in silence first. You give chances. You observe patterns. You hold on longer than you should, because you keep hoping they'll see it, hoping they'll feel the weight of your patience. But when your silence finally arrives, it's not a mood, it's not a phase, it's not a cry for attention. It's a funeral, and they felt it. Oh, they felt it. Because people like you don't leave because you're tired. You leave because they've left you no other choice. They thought you were weak because you didn't retaliate, because you didn't fight dirty, because you didn't match their ego with ego. They thought silence meant surrender. But what they never understood was that your silence wasn't a white flag. It was a warning that they'd gone too far, that you had nothing left to give, that you finally saw them clearly and no longer wanted to save someone who kept setting fire to your soul. And that silence, it hit harder than any insult. It echoed in their empty moments when no one else was texting, when no one else checked in, when they were left with their own thoughts and your absence suffocating the air in their lungs. You see, the loud ones, they're predictable. You can prepare for the ones who explode. But the quiet ones, they haunt you, because you don't realize you're losing them until they're gone. And by the time you do, it's too late. They've already healed in silence, already buried the pain, already rewritten their story without you in it. That's what you did. You grieved while they were still laughing. You cried while they were entertaining distractions. You rebuilt in silence while they danced in delusion. And now you've risen while they're crumbling in private, while they replay every moment wondering how they didn't see it coming, wondering how someone who used to care that much could vanish so completely. And the scar you left, it's not loud, it's not messy, it's subtle, but it's deep. It lingers in their routines, in the quiet of the night, in the pauses between conversations with new people who don't feel like you It lives in the good mornings that feel empty, in the take cares that don't carry your warmth. It aches in the way they now question if anyone really cares, because you did, until you didn't. And now, they understand what they never took seriously, that people who move in silence often do the most damage, not because they want to hurt, but because their absence reveals the truth louder than their presence ever did. They won't admit it. People like them never do. But they miss you. Not because you were loud, dramatic, or toxic, but because you were solid, reliable, calm, consistent. And now that silence surrounds them, they finally understand how much noise your love made, how much it filled the spaces they never even noticed were empty. But the quiet ones don't come back. Once they're gone, they stay gone. And that's what they live with now. A scar they'll carry forever, left by someone who didn't shout, didn't fight, didn't beg, just walked away and never looked back. Ninth lesson, they learned that love without effort dies, no matter how real it was. They thought love alone would keep you there. Thought that because you loved them deeply, you'd keep showing up no matter how poorly they treated you. That you'd stay just because your heart was honest. They misunderstood the rules. Thought they could offer the bare minimum, toss you crumbs, disappear when it mattered most, then show up later with half apologies and still be welcomed, like nothing happened. But love is not immune to neglect. It's not invincible. It doesn't survive forever when it's being starved. And that's what they did. They starved it, slowly, repeatedly, until you looked at the same love you once protected with everything and realized it was dying in your hands. So you let it go, not because you stopped loving them, but because they stopped earning it. They stopped putting in effort. The little things? Gone. The texts you used to wake up to. Silence. The check-ins. The care. The presence. All replaced with distance, avoidance, coldness. And you kept giving, hoping they'd snap out of it, hoping they'd remember how it used to feel. But people who get too comfortable in your love stop trying. They expect you to stay, even when they give nothing. They rely on your fear of abandonment, on your big heart, on your loyalty, and they did. They relied on it so much they forgot that love requires fuel, requires effort, requires presence. And when it wasn't there, when you kept showing up to an emotional ghost, they thought your patience was permanent. But it wasn't. You can only pour from an empty cup for so long before it shatters in your hand. And now? Now they look back and realize just how much you did. You were the planner, the giver, the one who remembered every important date, every detail, every need they never even voiced. You were the consistency they now crave in people who can't even spell it. You were the one who gave love like it was oxygen. And now they're gasping for air in rooms full of people who don't even notice they're suffocating. Because effort, that's what you gave. Not just love, but action. You stayed up when they needed to talk. You showed up when they canceled on themselves. You defended them when they weren't around. You spoke life into their dreams when they didn't believe in themselves. And they gave excuses. They told you they were busy while giving their time to everyone else. Told you they forgot while remembering things for people who didn't care. Told you they needed space while craving validation from strangers. And now they feel the consequences, the cold, the distance, the reality of losing someone who made loving look effortless, but who was actually bleeding, trying to hold it all together. Love died. Not because you stopped feeling, but because they stopped feeding it. And here's what they'll never forget. No one is obligated to stay where they feel unwanted. Love is not a prison. It's a choice. And you chose them day after day until they gave you no reason to. Until you looked around and saw a relationship that looked like a ghost town. No affection, no effort, just memories. And so you walked, quietly, not to punish, but to breathe. And now they suffocate in the same silence they once ignored. Because the love was real, but love without effort, it dies. No matter how deep, how pure, how magical it once was, it dies. And now they're left staring at its grave, whispering, "I miss you," into a world that doesn't echo back.